cause other kids to not want to come because of that one kid. All right, so if we don't address it, then we're putting ourselves at risk to lose other kids that really do want to be there and participate, that are following the rules and engaging, but they just don't want to put up with the drama from that one child. So we need to learn how to address unruly children, but not only address them when they're acting up or disciplining them, not punishing them or just disciplining them, but disciple them, teach them, approach them with a mindset that I am going to help this child. Not just get on to him, not just address the problem, but I want to help this kid. So what do? If we correct issues as they go, but we never pull that kid in, we're tempted to label kids because it's easier to label a kid than to take initiative to reach and teach them and help them. It's easier to label them. Oh, that's just Johnny. Yeah. Oh, great. Billy's here today. And it's easy to label them and just have this expectation that they're going to be a problem, and we never even take the initiative to reach out to them preventively to help them and teach them and set those expectations. We had a little boy that walked out of Sunday school one time. He came in on the bus, and we were noticing a trend. He came for breakfast because he was hungry, but he was not being engaged to stay. And he was an unruly child. And so he felt like, he'd come and eat, and instead of just being gotten onto the whole hour that he was there, he just wanted to come and eat and leave. So there was this one Sunday he came, ate, and he literally walked off our church property. We called their parents. Parents wouldn't answer. In the state of California, we cannot lock kids in a room. We cannot physically restrain them. And so we had somebody walking with them, making sure that they were safe, but the kid walked off. And we had to call the sheriff's department and say, hey, look, we have this situation. And they were able to contact the parents, and it was this big ordeal. Well, guess what? That next Sunday, he wanted to come to Sunday school. No, he's too much of a headache. No. We went and we had a conversation with his parents. We had a conversation with him. Look, when you come, when we pick you up on that bus, we're responsible for you, and we are looking out for your safety, and we want to make sure you're fed, but we know that you can have a good time if you just engage and do what we're asking you to do. You can have a good time if you stay. We want you to stay. And we told him how much we wanted him to be there. Anyway, so that following Sunday, he came to Sunday school on the bus, and I had a conversation. I saw him walk through the door, and I went down to him, and I said, hey, Bobby. His name's Bobby. Bobby, you're going to stay all service long? And he's like, yeah, I think so. I said, I need to know, buddy. I think you can do it. I know you can do it. I need a commitment from you. We were going to feed you. You could have thirds if you want, but I need to know you're going to stay. Are you going to stay? And he's like, yeah, I'll stay. And I said, no, convince me that you're going to stay. And he's like, yeah, Pastor, I'm going to stay. And guess what? He stayed. And he's been coming every Sunday, staying, and he's being engaged. This last Sunday, he shed his first tear at altar. This is a hard kid. A hardened kid. And if all I was doing is just label him, and he walked off and said, oh man, I'm glad we're done with that problem, that's a soul that just walked out. And if we take the initiative to teach, to reach, to help, to discipline, not just punish, but to discipline them, then we're not only addressing unruly children, but we're also adjusting our mindset toward them. What lengths are we willing to go for a child? What are the lengths that we're willing to go? Help them believe in God's love toward them. Help them believe in their meaning in life. When they can't see it, you see it for them. And you exemplify it. Exemplify love to them. If all a kid hears is like, then they're not going to want to say. I'll give you a little tidbit of information that's so true, that the only reason why we get kids on the bus to come to Sunday school, this is the only reason why. They want to be there. They don't want to be there, they're not coming. Their parents aren't dragging them into the car. Parents aren't even waking them up to get ready for Sunday school most of the time. They're getting themselves up, getting themselves dressed to come to Sunday school. And if they don't want to be there, they're not going to be there. And so we've got to address our mindset too towards unruly children, as well as addressing unruly children. All right. So also another thing that we need to not allow to be taboo in our children's ministry. I'm going to try to get through this quickly because I have a lot to cover here. We've got to accept our pond and be thankful for what we're working with. All right. Who here has classrooms that are too small? Who here has rooms they have to share with other departments in the church? Who here is working on a budget that is out of your own pocket? Who's here working with an old beat up sound system that is cutting in and out all the time and sometimes, yeah. So these are the things this is what I'm talking about, our pond, all right? Our resources. This is what we have to work with, all right? And we need to learn to appreciate what we have and use it to the best of our ability. What we'd like to do is we need to make the best of our resources. So what is our resources as children's ministry? Our space, our time. Who here feels like they don't have enough time with their kids sometimes? I wish it was longer, right? Yeah. And we could complain and we could beat our head against the wall all we want, but that's not helping what we do have. That's not being beneficial. And so instead of complaining about it, learn to be content with the pond. Be content with your resources. Make the best of it to your ability that you can. Your materials, your staff, who feels like they're understaffed. Right? Understaffed, money, all of these things. We need to learn to make the best of them. Remember the parable of the talents, okay? The Lord gave them what they needed to get started, but it was their job to make it work. It was their job to make it work. And as it was fruitful, it grew, right? And oftentimes we just wish away precious time and opportunity waiting for a better situation. We think, yeah, we can have revival when we get a better room, or we could grow when this happens. And we wait on that conditional statement. If I would just have this, then we would have revival. And we need to realize that we can have revival with what we have in our hand. God asked Moses, what's in your hand? He didn't have the assets to split a Red Sea. God just said, what's in your hand? Use what you got. And sometimes we could just wish that we had more. And that could be a weight on us. And instead of approaching what you have at your disposal as kind of like this thing that you just wish wasn't the way it was, and we could kind of be frustrated with our reality, we got to learn to be content and learn to know that if I use this to the best of my ability, God is going to bless it. God is going to give the increase, all right? God's just hoping we would invest into what he's already given us, right? So another thing that we need to do as far as appreciating our pond is our kids. So sometimes it's not our staff or our money or our space or our time, but let's just be honest. Who wishes their kids were more, they enjoyed songs more. I wish our kids enjoyed songs more. Sometimes I'd be out there, and they're just like, right? And you're reaching, you're trying to pull, and you're trying to have so much fun that they want to have fun with you, and sometimes you just get kids that don't want to. You have this big old game plan, and you have the same 3 kids that always wants to help, and you're trying to pull for those other kids that are just kind of on the back row or in the middle of the crowd, they're shy or whatever, and you just wish they'd blink. They're like, do something. Are you like, hello, right? And we can get frustrated with the kids sometimes even. And we need to realize, like, look, this is what God gave us. Every person that has come to our church, God has a plan and a purpose for. And God loves them, and it doesn't matter if they're shy. It doesn't matter if they're backwards. It doesn't matter. Like God's not just interested in extroverts. He's interested in everybody. And so it's our job to appreciate the pond, all right? Sometimes we are so focused on the sharks that we're not actively engaging and discipling all the other fish in the pond, okay? And so we need to notice and engage with every single child in the room. We need to work hard on not having favorites. I don't have favorites. Well, are you sure? This might be taboo. There's that little piece of us that says, well, pastor's granddaughter's in my class, so I want to make sure that she gets opportunity. And that's great to give our kids opportunity. We want to give our kids opportunity. But the moment we start playing favorites is a moment we may lose an opportunity to connect with other kids that's not in church. I mean, our church kids, Brother Bradshaw said it, our church kids, they have connections within the church. They have family. They have grandparents. They have relationships. They're coming to church 3-4 times a week. These kids that are coming in on the buses, if the only time that we notice them or engage with them is to tell them not to do something, they're not going to feel welcome. They're not going to feel engaged. So we need to take a mental note of the kids that are screaming for attention. Anybody have those kids in your classroom? They're just screaming for attention. They might be acting out to get attention. And we can get frustrated with that. Oh, they just want attention. Okay. You know why, right? Because they're not getting it. Their parents may not be at home, or whatever. They could just be a drama queen, okay? But the fact of the matter is when kids are screaming for attention, we need to look for ways to love them and engage with them without taking opportunities away from the other kids. All right. But sometimes if we're just trying to constantly focus on the sharks, focus on the fish that are screaming for attention, jumping out of the water, causing chaos, then there's other kids that maybe well-behaved kids that need discipled, need opportunity, need engagement, that aren't getting it because we're so focused on these certain ones. Maybe it's not that they're our favorites, but they're the ones consuming all of our attention, all right? And so we got to be really intentional to consider every single child in the classroom. Make sure you're showing them love and appreciation without conditions. Does that mean that's unconditional? So one of the things that you can do is you could use incentives to help kids, right? Give them rewards and stuff like that. But here's the thing. When you have incentives for behavior, or you're going to use kids, but they have to be hitting certain standards or certain, they got to be engaging or participating on a certain level, and that's the ones that you're going to use. You're going to find that you get the same winners and you get the same losers. You get the same kids that want to be helping, and you get the same kids that are just always going to be in the crowd, right? And so what we do is we kind of set this paradigm up where we have the kids that are, and we don't feel like this. We don't feel like that's our favorite. It's just that they're the kids that want to be used, right? And my wife is this way sometimes. She's kind of an introvert, all right? And she doesn't necessarily want to go to the party, but she wants to be invited. You know what I mean? It's like, and so these kids, while they may not be acting out, screaming for attention or acting up to so that you'd engage with them, it doesn't mean that there's this place in their heart where they want to know that they're seen and that they're loved. And so we just have to consider our kids and be grateful for the pond that God has given us, the fish that's in the pond, all the resources in the pond. We've got to be grateful for it and use what we have. All right, another thing that can be taboo sometimes is some of the topics, some of the things that we say when we're preaching or we're teaching to our kids. We got to talk to them where they're living. We got to talk to them where they're living. Do not ignore their reality or their dysfunction just because it's kids' church and so we want to keep it PG. Well, guess what? Some of these kids, they're not living a PG life. These kids are exposed to things earlier and earlier, violence, language. Kindergartners cussing people out. It's crazy the speed at which kids are growing up nowadays. And so when we're in children's church, is it taboo to talk about drugs in kids' church with preteens? No, they're not doing drugs. Maybe they're not. But maybe they were coming from a generational cycle of drug addiction, and they see it with their mama, with their daddy, with their aunts, their uncle. They see it in their neighborhood. They're exposed to that. They might not be doing it, But they need to know that God is a deliverer, right? And that we can't let the devil grab a hold of us with this type of stuff. If they don't have somebody sounding the trumpet for them on these things. So my father-in-law, he was not a preacher, but he was a man of God. He was the Sunday school superintendent for Brother Frost for many years, him and his wife, and in Bakersfield. And we were about to take the pastor to the church in Oildale in 2015. In November was our installation. And he passed away in a car accident in October, the month before we were to take the church. And leading up to that, he never got to be in church with us. But leading up to that, we were sitting down in his office, we were talking. He said, now Tyler, in preaching, there will always be bloodshed. But it's up to you on whether or not the blood is on the sword or your hands. When we preach the word and we're getting down to where they're living, then we could always say that we told them. We could always say that we gave them truth, we didn't give it to them watered down, we gave it to them as it was, we gave it to them on their level, but man, we were ministering to them where they're living. We didn't try to go above their heads, we didn't try to water it down so much that they missed the point. We gave it to them straight and we tried, all right? But if we don't sound that alarm, the blood's on our hands. And so we got to preach to them, teach them where they're living, their reality. Sin is so much more than just lying and stealing and being mean. And just because they're church kids, by the way, doesn't mean they have a perfect life. All right? They face things too. There's divorce in their families. Their families are fighting. They're being bullied by their peers. They're facing peer pressure, right? They're seeing digital temptations. They're dealing with self-esteem issues. They are having stress too. Matter of fact, I did some research for this class, and just to help us know what we're dealing with, I've got some statistics for us that I would like to share. That in 2023, the National Institute of Drug Abuse reported that 10.9% of 8th graders had used illicit drugs in that year. That's 1 in 10 8th graders had used illicit drugs. By age 15, 33% of kids have had at least one drink of alcohol. By age 18, that number increases to 60%. Kids who drink before 15 are 4 times more likely to be alcohol dependent in their lifetime. The American Lung Association encourages parents to start teaching their children about the dangers of smoking at ages 5 or 6 years old. Many kids will start smoking at age 11, and some are considered addicts by age 14. Tobacco usage is primarily started and established by adolescents. In fact, 9 out of 10 adults who smoke daily first try smoking before the age of 18. According to the cyberbullying stats from DoSomething.org, 27% of kids admitted to doing or saying something cruel to someone else online. 60% of kids have witnessed cyberbullying, and most ignore it. Only 1 in 10 kid victims will tell a parent or trusted adult that they're being bullied. Did you follow that? 1 in 10 kids will tell somebody they trust, or an adult, a parent, that they're experiencing bullying. You don't even know a lot of times what these kids are facing that come to Sunday school. But the statistics show that they're facing real temptations. They're facing real life, deep problems. And if we candy coat everything and we stray away from nerve spots, in our preaching and our teaching, then we're doing them a disservice, because God doesn't deal with those issues. No, let's let God help them. All right, a common sense media, this is going to hit hard. A common sense media survey found that the average age for kids to first be exposed to pornography is 12 years old. That's average. That means a lot of them's younger. 15% saw pornography at 10 years or younger. 41% saw explicit online content during the school day. Matter of fact, we developed a rule that while we're on the bus, while we're at Sunday school, we're there for God and for each other. And so we don't use our phones on the bus or at school or at the church. If you need something, we'll get a hold of your parents, but we don't do phones. And you know why? Because We had a little boy that got exposed to pornography on our Sunday school bus from another bus kid's phone. "10 years old, got exposed to that." Kids ages 5 to 8 years old spend 3 hours a day in front of a screen. 53% of kids in the U.S. have a smartphone by age 11. That's crazy, y'all. Over half of kids age 11 and under have a smartphone. I don't know what you've decided to do, but that's crazy to me. Research shows that 90% of children aged 8 to 16 years old have seen online pornography. 90%. This is taboo, y'all. But our kids, this is a generation that is being exposed. They have access to things that just with a few clicks of a button, and our kids, our teens, they know how to hide things. And so when we're teaching, when we're preaching, we don't need to stray from using some of this terminology about technology. Sometimes we just use, Fortnite. I've heard it said multiple times tonight. But these kids, if they're on Fortnite, guess what that means? That means that they have network connectivity. And there's other games, Roblox, different things. They literally have conversations with total strangers. It's a brooding ground for grooming and all this stuff. And it's serious. And so when we're talking to our kids, we should know where they're living. About 4 million referrals for alleged maltreatment are made to CPS every year. Between 3.3 to 10 million children are exposed to adult domestic violence, and conservatively 10 to 20% of children witness intimate partner violence every year. That means 10 to 20% of kids in America are seeing mom and dad go to blows, beating each other up. That may not seem like a lot, but I'm telling you, the chances are, if you have a bus ministry, if you have a large Sunday school classroom, your kids are seeing things that they should not see and experiencing life on a dark, deep level that we don't think kids should experience. The truth of the matter is they shouldn't. Right. But the truth of the matter is they do. Right. And so if we get to know where they're coming from, I encourage you, Sunday school teachers, you don't necessarily have to be involved in bus ministry to be a Sunday school teacher, but I encourage you, get on a Sunday school bus for one Sunday and go see where your kids are coming from. Look at that house. Go to the front door and introduce yourself to that parent. And see the emptiness in their eyes. Take a whiff on that patio. Oh, God. I've been on patios when they open the door, your nose literally burns because of the filth. These are where our kids are coming from. And, we want to treat every kid the same, and that's fine and that's well, but guess what? There's some kids, I'm going to show them a lot more grace and patience because I know where they're coming from. I'm going to show them, I'm going to go out of my way to make sure that they know I love them, Not every kid might get a phone call from me throughout the week, but there might be a kid I know that is struggling that's going to get a phone call from me, So let's be spirit-led. Let's get to know our kids. The last stat I wanted to hit is according to the 2022 National Health Care Quality and Disparities Report, nearly 20% of kids in the United States have a mental, emotional, developmental, or behavioral disorder. In 2017, studies showed that childhood anxiety disorder affected 1 in every 8 children dealing with anxiety. 1 in 6 U.S. children aged 2 to 8 years old, that's 17.4% of 2 to 8-year-olds, had a diagnosed mental, behavioral, or developmental disorder. Suicide behaviors among high school students increased more than 40% in the decade before 2019. And between 2016 to 2022, children's hospitals saw a 166% increase in emergency department visits for suicide attempts and self-injury among children from ages 5 years old to 18. And approximately 2 million adolescents attempt suicide every year. Among U.S. pediatric deaths, a quarter of that, 25%, is suicide. Suicide is the leading cause of death in adolescents in America. They're dealing with things up here. They're dealing with things in here. They're dealing with stuff at home and at school and among their peers that are so dark and so deep. And if we candy coat everything and try to laugh everything off and make it shallow, friend, we're doing them a disservice. We want to see them saved. So let's get to know them. Let's see where they're living. Let's see where's their reality. And when I preach, when I teach, I don't necessarily want to scare them, all right? I don't want to be having a conversation after Sunday school saying, hey, you shouldn't be talking about to my kids about, drugs, I think that's a little too early. And so I'm not saying to be trigger happy on some of this stuff, but get to know the kids. That's what I'm saying. Get to know the kids and minister to them in their reality. What do they need? They need God to help their families. They need God to help them. And so sometimes we just kind of blanket children's ministry and make it all fun and exciting, when sometimes these kids need to go a little deeper than that, right? And we need to be able to do that. Another thing that's taboo sometimes because it's hard and it's uncomfortable, and I am not, let me clarify something. I am not deputizing anyone to call CPS. But child abuse is very real. There's if you're in the state of California, and I think each state has a website similar to this, but I posted it. There's trainings, free trainings and paid trainings. I think it's free that you go to mandatedreporterca.com, and they have specific training just for religious organizations to train on what is the law that we're all obligated to perform, what things to look out for. As someone who works with children in an official capacity, we are all mandated reporters. Who knew that? Who knows what a mandated reporter is? Mandated reporter, if you know or reasonably suspect that there is child abuse going on, we are legally mandated to report it. But they're not going to be able to come to church on Sunday. How selfish are we? Right. To want them to be with us for an hour and a half, but make them live through torture 6 days out of the week. I believe that we're sowing seeds, and you never know how a seed is going to develop. If that does happen, to where I have to report something and they can't come to Sunday school anymore because they're moved out of state or whatever, here's the truth of the matter. I personally know because I've had training in it. My wife and I, we've fostered multiple times. We're currently in a situation right now. Foster kids have rights. And if they're placed in the system, they get to choose what church they go to. That is a right they have. They are not allowed to be forced to go to church with their caretakers. And they are not allowed to be kept from going to any church that they want to go to. They have to be allowed to go. A lot of the problem is with caretakers is they don't want to drive them. But if there's arrangements that could be made and they can go, then they will be allowed to go. So that excuse to not do something to protect a child because you don't want to lose them, there's ways around that. You don't have to never see them again. If you've built a personal relationship with that child, you can keep in touch with them. And if they still want to come to church, by law, they have the right to come back to Sunday school. So let me just give you guys that little bit of peace of mind, right? If you see bruises, I'm not deputizing anybody, all right? I don't want everybody playing detective, okay? This is serious stuff because when you call CPS, it's life-changing. It's life-changing for you. It's life-changing for that family. It's life-changing for that child. And you could try to be anonymous, but the truth of the matter is it's not. It's not really, it can't be, especially if the family's known about it for so long. The schools sometimes should have seen the signs. Sorry, everybody. If you suspect that a child is facing sexual, physical abuse or neglect, talk to your leadership about your concerns, okay? Before you just go make a call, talk to your leadership, get a plan, and make the call. Don't let that be your own call, because your church is going to be on the hook for some things. Your pastor's got to fill out a report, or you as a mandated. There's reports that have to be filled out. It's a lot. But just because it's a lot doesn't mean that we don't need to be an advocate for these kids. All right? It's a taboo thing. Well, that's just the way it is. I can't call on everybody, and that's true. I live in a part of town where it's hard to recognize when the line has been crossed because it's just so much neglect. And, just because they whoop a kid doesn't necessarily mean that they're abusive, right? Thank God. Lord knows my kids need whoopings, right? And so I'm saying take this very, very seriously. I'm not deputizing anybody, but if you know something's going on, if you see signs, if you have conversations, you built relationships and trust where kids are opening up to you about stuff, don't ignore that and say, well, I'll be praying for you, sweetheart. No, this is serious. I mean, matter of fact, seriously, their life is on the line. Okay, all right. Another one to consider is hygiene. Who's ever had kids that came to church that stunk? Whew, what do you do when a kid stinks? Lysol. Ignore it. Spray him down with Lysol. Say, "Pee, you kid, get over here. I'm going to throw you in this contamination room here and just spray you down." No, I'm just playing. So my mom did something. We want to help the children. Everybody say, help the children. Help the children where you can, all right? Never judge or be condescending because they stink. They're already getting that. Other places, right? They're already going to have to deal with that, even from some of the kids. And we got to train our children that are well taken care of to give grace and to understand that when people come in that don't look like us, when people come in they might smell a different way or they might dress a different way, to tell them that, look, these are the people that we're trying to win to Jesus. So show them kindness. Like teach our own children how to embrace kids that might come in that might not have that kind of care, all right? But we don't judge them. We don't be condescending to them. But when parents, I've found this to be true with the church, when parents don't lead their children in basic life skills, oftentimes the church will take more of the role of a life mentor than just a place to go to know Jesus. All right? You teach them things that their parents don't teach them. My mom and dad, my mom, there was this, when we were growing up, there was this family that came to Sunday school, and man, they stunk to high heaven. And my mom did something really sweet. She went and bought baskets, like little Easter basket things. It wasn't even Easter time, but she went out and bought baskets and filled it full of hygiene stuff. Made it cute and bought some cute little girly stuff and different things and made it real pretty. And she gave each of those kids a hygiene basket, right? And just had that blunt conversation. It was uncomfortable. It was awkward. But she asked them, how often do you take a shower? You guys, are you able to shower frequently? Because we love you so much, and we want to help take care of you guys. And we want to give this as our gift to you, right? So we want to see you succeed and grow and be okay. And so these girls had built a relationship with my mom and dad to know the heartbeat from where it was coming from. They weren't strangers who said, do some soap, please, right? There was a relationship built there already. Turns to find out their family was so poor, they couldn't afford to take showers. Whether it was in their mind or they really couldn't afford it, they literally couldn't afford the water to take showers. And so they would walk down to the lake. We lived in a mountain community, rural mountain town. They would walk down to the lake and sponge bathe in the lake once a week. That was happening. That's crazy. That's nuts. And so automatically we'd be like, ooh, they stink. Ignore it. Just plug your nose and hope it goes away. Listen, unless they have someone who cares, it's not going to go away. Unless they have somebody that's mentoring them and helping them and showing them love and giving them that guidance, they're not going to learn how to do it on their own, okay? So let's be that advocate for them. Matter of fact, I love this. In one of the classes that we were taking to be where we're at with the state, the system, there was a foster young person that He was a ward of the state, not in foster only, but disciplinary. He had done some crimes, and he was going through the system because of it. And he was about to age out of the system. He was 17 years old, about to age out. And he was placed with his family, and he was with them for 6 months. And that 6 months that he had with that family changed his life forever. And he was talking at a TED Talk or something. And he said, you know what? Every child is one caring adult away from success. Every child is one caring adult away from success. Matter of fact, Barna had a study that just came out that found that if a child has a relationship with a non-family adult within the church, a meaningful relationship with a non-family adult in the church, that they're 64% more likely to integrate biblical values into their lives than without having that adult. And they're only 24% likely to integrate biblical values into their lives without an adult that cares. So if we just leave it to them to come on Sunday school and just get with the program, they're 24% likely for that to be successful. But besides just the Sunday school program, if they have one adult that cares and has a meaningful relationship with that child, then their chances of being saved is going to go up. Matter of fact, we've had multiple young people who came from the bus who didn't have family serving God, who at times there was conflict with the youth group. Who's ever had that before? They had conflict in the youth group, and they didn't have an advocate at home. It would have been really easy for them to just walk away and say, I'm fed up, I'm done, I'm not coming back. Yeah. But because they had a caring adult in the church that was not unrelated, that mentored her and took her under her wing, she was able to bear through it, and she overcame it. And now she's great. She's awesome. But without that adult advocate, then we've asked her that before. It's like, man, how did you get through that situation? And she'll tell you, Sister April got me through that. She's a lady in a wheelchair, not even involved in Sunday school. But she took it upon herself to build a relationship with that young person. Amen. All right. Lice. Oh, boy. Oh, man. Be honest, who's ever had it? Oh, man. It's taboo. You get the creepy calls just thinking about it. But guess what? If you have a bus ministry, you're going to have kids that come to Sunday school with lice. If you don't have a bus ministry and you have kids who come to Sunday school, you're going to have lice problems from time to time. It's just a way of life. And so what you can do, it's taboo. A lot of times it's just easier to ignore it. What we like to do is just communicate with the parents. Communicate with the parents. Let them know, hey, we just noticed that they were itching, and we had seen it. We didn't do a deep dive, but we were praying with little so-and-so. We were greeting them, and we could tell that there was some signs of lice. Did you know that? And ask the parents. And most of the time, they're like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. Yeah, I know. It's just that the treatment's so expensive. And that's usually the case for a lot of people. They already know that it's a problem. But what we need to do with this is we need to educate our families, like the kids and the parents, but we also need to educate our staff, because there's a lot of misinformation about lice that scare people, okay? When it comes to, and I'm going to rock the boat a little bit, because I'm going to mess up with some of y'all's ideology about lice. I'm not telling you to keep it around as a pet, okay? But it kind of goes back, how far are we willing to go? I'm not saying get lice for a kid. That's not what I'm saying. But this is kind of, if we want to get our hands messy and win kids to God, we're going to face stuff like this. I love what Brother Bradshaw said in the previous session. He said, if we want the rain, we're going to have to get used to the mud, right? So If there's families in the church that are concerned because there's a family or a kid that has lice and they're coming to Sunday school, we need to be able to educate them. So this is from the Lice Clinics of America, okay? And they usually have clinics all over. Like they probably have a clinic in your area, Lice Clinics of America. This is directly from them. These are the professionals. So this is not just my opinion. I'm going to the source here, Lice Clinics of America. Lice Clinic America says that lice is transmitted via direct head-to-head contact. And it can be spread through sharing pillows, combs, hats, scarves, and such like. But such transmission is quite rare. Since lice do not jump, lice don't fly, and lice do not swim. They can only be transmitted by crawling from head-to-head contact, and they prefer not to leave the environment of a human head since they typically only live 24 hours off of a human host. Oh, I've had parents and other Sunday school teachers that they were scared to death that lice was just going to jump all over everybody. That's not the way this works. How many of your Sunday school kids are sharing pillows in kids' church? Sharing combs in kids' church? Sharing hats in kids' church? Right? Most of this transmission stuff, it's not happening, okay? Hugging, that could be a problem, right? Because you're head to head, right? And so that's why we try to encourage high fives, handshakes. I had somebody say, why don't we say, greet your brother with a holy kiss anymore? Right? I've got a couple of reasons why. 3 letters. STDs. Right? No, that's taboo. You don't know who's coming into church. All right? And so we kind of create this environment. I know we want to hug on kids, and when they come up and hug me, I don't say, ew. I shoulder pat 3 times, and I step back. Right? I don't engage in a hug, but if a kid wants to hug me, they're looking for love. I'm going to shoulder pat them and step back, right? But we shouldn't be creepy crawly with the kids. We're just going to love them and understand, like, look, this is just a thing. And you know what our excuse used to be? Our excuse used to be, well, the schools say that they got to go home until they get it fixed, and then they can come back to school. That used to be the rule. Schools, that's not the rule anymore. I'm itching right now. But that's not the rule anymore. If there's lice, kids, they still come to school. You know why? Because it was such a prevalent problem. They could not do anything about it. They could say, you know what, this is just the way it is. We got to make sure that kids are keeping their distance. We got to make sure that there's adequate spacing and what have you. But other than that, like, there's no way around it. And so we don't use that as a cop-out anymore. How many times do we think the public schools are doing just a knockout job with our kids, of protecting them and looking out for them, right? Not so much, okay? But in this thing, we wanted to take example from them and use that as an excuse to protect ourselves. Listen, I'm not telling you what to do. That's going to be between you and your pastor, but I'm just letting you know it's going to be a thing. There's going to be a kid that comes with lice. There's going to be a family who comes with lice. And you're going to have teachers that are freaked out. You're going to have other families in the church that are concerned, all right? And you need to have an answer to be able to educate them and have a plan. If you guys want to say, all right, you're not coming to Sunday school until you get this fixed, then at least make the investment and offer to help them with the treatment. My wife has done so many lice treatments. But the thing is it doesn't stop with one treatment. A lot of times there's eggs that didn't get killed that needed to hatch so that you could treat that, and then you got to clean their bedding, and if they're not taking care of stuff at home, then it's going to be a perpetual problem. And so if we use that, say you're not going to come back to Sunday school until you get this fixed, they may never come back. And so we just have to educate ourselves and be aware of how it's transmitted, try to bring some comfort to some people and have a plan when that conversation comes up, because it's going to come up. Don't ignore it. All right, another thing that's taboo sometimes as apostolics is standards, an apostolic identity regarding holiness. The best way you can teach it is exemplify it. The best way you can teach it is make sure that they're integrated, Brother Bradshaw, with other kids Show them that you can be 15 and holy. You can live for God in the 21st century as a young person, right? Teach them. So the way that I like to start this, and this is getting back down to the reality part of where they're living. I like to teach God-oriented gender roles. Like God made man and he made woman. You're not just jumping on dress right away, but you're identifying the God-ordained difference between male and female. Why are we focusing on that? Because that's where we're living. These kids, they're dealing with gender dysphoria young. And guess what? It's not gender dysphoria. It's crazy liberal parent dysphoria. There was this lady on the news the other day, and she was telling the radio host that was doing this interview with her, she was saying, yeah, we put my 3-year-old on hormone transition. He wants to be female, so we started hormone treatments as young as 3 years old. She wanted to be a boy or whatever. And the radio host called her out for it. It's like, she didn't want that. You put that in her head. And she didn't have anything to say. Because these kids are being indoctrinated by the world. And yet we're so afraid of that word. I want to indoctrinate every kid that comes to my church. What does it mean to indoctrinate? It means you're putting doctrine in them. That's what the church is all about. We shouldn't be afraid of indoctrination. We realize the world is trying to indoctrinate our kids and our families in this upcoming generation. So we should have a clap back to that, right? Clapping back. They want to talk about gender, we'll talk about gender, right? They want to talk about these things, then we're gonna address it in Sunday school as well. I'm not saying that you have to teach it every single day, but encourage kids to be who God created them to be. Teach them about how feelings aren't everything, right? I've got eyeballs in my head. I can tell who's attractive. Guess what? This taboo topics? I can look at a man and say, that's a good-looking guy. That don't mean I'm gay. I got eyes in my head. All right? So we teach children where they're living, right? And so we encourage kids to be who God created them to be and not as the world or what is popular is telling them to explore or accept. We help them be confident and comfortable accepting themselves as God made them and know that they are wonderfully and fearfully made. When we talk about makeup and all this jewelry and stuff, what are we doing first? We're not teaching just straight to the standard. We're building them up to be confident in their own skin, to accept who God created them to be, not just in their looks, but in their gender. That's crazy that we have to even identify that nowadays. But we do. That's where we're living, right? And so another thing is you could help with clothes, right? Have a store where people donate the clothes that their church kids are outgrowing and have donations coming in. Just have sizes in a closet somewhere. I know I'm adding one more thing to your closet, sorry. But have clothes on site so that when people are coming and kids really want to start living for God and if they have interest, or they may not even have an interest, but just offer it to them and say, hey, look, we've got a clothing store that you could come in and you could pick out an outfit and you're going to look so beautiful. You could even have, a tie-tying night or a tie-tying Sunday. Tie-tying Sunday. And serve Thai food. I'm just kidding. A tie. Okay. So as the boys come in, teach them how to tie a tie, right? And make it something exciting, and show them that they can be holy. I know a lot of times these kids, they're not making that decision. Their parents are the ones that buy them their clothes. A lot of times their parents aren't even buying them clothes. They're just getting hand-me-downs anyway. So you be the one doing the hand-me-downs. They'll start wearing what you give them because that's what they got, right? And so if we don't want to ignore holiness. This is what's crazy to me, is sometimes we ignore holiness and we ignore involvement with kids, and then all of a sudden they turn 16 years old, and and we have these expectations for them to participate in ministry and to be holy and to meet the standards of the church. And it's the first time they're hearing about it. They've come for 10 years. So let's start integrating some of those teachings and concepts in our Sunday school. Another thing that we want to teach them is honoring the church, both physical and spiritually. How do we do this? Exemplify it, and we teach it, all right? So teach them about the pastor, all right? The pastor's role in the church, teach them that we take care of our church property. Sometimes kids will make messes. Did you guys know that happens? Okay, yeah. So, but sometimes kids are like extra, and then they just walk away from it, and we're like, we have to clean it up. No, you don't do that. You teach them to do that. Right. You teach them. Why? Because we take care of our church. This is this is God's house. And so we address those things instead of just ignoring it, because it'd just be easier if I did it. Well, how's that helping them, All right, teach them. That's why we're here. Here's another one. I know I've got to hurry. I've got 1 minute. Oh, no, I don't. I'm way past time, aren't I? Oh, no! Real quick, departmental drama. Ain't nobody got time for that. I could spend a whole hour on departmental drama. That's taboo. Listen, if y'all can't get along, then you need to go pray through. Amen. And then come back, leave your gift at the altar and go make it right with your brother, and then come back to be involved. Amen. All right. Another thing, golden calves. We only serve one God. We don't serve a program. We don't serve a method. We don't have any golden calves. Well, this is the way we've always done it. I don't care. Right. Yeah. We don't worship the thing, all right? Let's always take a hard look at effectiveness and follow the Spirit. All right. I got to be done. Love you guys. Oh, yeah, and build relationships with your kids. How many here has the phone numbers for the kids that come to their Sunday school? Access to phone numbers. There we go. How many of you guys know the parents? That's good. Some of them. Sometimes, some of you guys got big classrooms. What I'm saying is, if you want to build a relationship with the kids, get to know their parents. Get to know their families. Get to know where they're coming from. Have their phone number on hand. You will make a kid's day if their parents go to the mailbox and they have a piece of mail in the mailbox with their name on it. Yeah, that is going to matter to a kid. All right, so build relationships. Don't let it just be another kid in an attendance record on Sunday morning. Let's build relationships. That's what's going to make an eternal impact on that child. God bless you guys. I got to be done.